little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Superman, that we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command, 'cause women rule the world.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride, America and Canada. And thank you for listening at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on Revolution Radio, the United Public Talk Radio Network, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and so much more as we welcome you to tonight's show as we are broadcasting live out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin right here in the Great White North as we do this thing every Friday night and into early Saturday morning if you are on the East Coast. Thank you so much for being with us. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast 3 hours a night, 7 days a week, because we want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, the paranormal, the cryptozoological, the spiritual, and so much more. Hey, if you like our theme music, you can thank the guitar god himself, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. That's where we put our archives, along with on TuneIn. And you can download this show and others right afterwards on iTunes. Want to say thanks for everyone tuning in tonight. If you're listening in on the Revolution Radio chat room, on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Chronicles of the Unknown, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. If you haven't signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet, it is time to do so. It's $5 a month, and with that, your name gets entered into monthly prize draws. You get access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, you can sign up for the SOR Sightlines Report. If you've had an interesting experience that you just cannot explain, you can read up on Eric Markham's SOR Space Wire for your latest and weird news. Check out my blog and, of course, listen to some great music from Bumblefoot himself. We want to thank our new affiliate, the United Public Radio Network on 107.5 FM in New Orleans, and with listeners from over 160 countries around the world. Thank you so much for bringing us to your evening schedule. Remember, if you are listening in on Revolution Radio, it is the largest nonprofit online station going. Do us a favor, take the time to visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Tonight on Spaced Out Radio, I am joined by weekend host James Tyson as we'll hold our second annual tribute to Remembrance Day up here in Canada and Veterans Day down in the United States. Today is a day of reminding ourselves that everything we have is because of those who gave up their lives for us to be able to do what we do. And even though time has moved forward, maybe, just maybe, unfortunately, some of us have lost some of that remembrance just a tad. Freedom does come with a cost, and sometimes that price is life. So we pay tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice and to those who were able to come home. And there's a whole world of troubles with that as well, but we're going to try and stay clear of that. Tonight we are joined by Canadian Army veteran Trevor Wright and a couple of familiar voices around Spaced Out Radio's parts from the United States Army, former medic and 19-year veteran Eric Cooper, and former U.S. Navy veteran Eric Markham. The military, no matter where you are in North America, plays a big part in our safety. I mean, think about it. Whether you're a peace activist, a supporter, or a protester like we've been seeing the past couple of days after the U.S. election, that right was provided to every single man and woman who has served, or by them. You don't have to appreciate it, even though you should, but whether you do or not, it's these strangers that you don't even know who would do it again, just for you. So today, we pay tribute and say thank you. Before I bring in our veterans for tonight, I want to bring in James Tyson. James, welcome.
Lost you, Dave.
Oh, you shouldn't have. Well, let's bring in the panel then. Eric Markham, Eric Cooper, Trevor Wright, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you along for the ride. I don't know why James is having some listening issues. I hope you've opened up your studio, James, so you can hear it for yourself. But we're going to continue on the show because that is what we do. That is how we're going to do it tonight, and we're going to kick things off right now with saying thank you to you three for your service and what you do and what you've done for your respective countries. And last year we had Trevor on as part of the show because it was one of those things that we just kind of threw together at the last moment, said, hey, we should be doing this, and I'm glad Trevor has come back. Trevor was part of the Canadian Armed Forces in the Army. He served in Afghanistan. Eric, you've served all over the world. That's Eric Cooper. And Eric Markham, you as well during your time in the Navy. So thank you, gentlemen, for doing what you did, because I know for a fact, and Trevor knows this because we're longtime buddies, if I could have done it, I would have. My knees, unfortunately, just wouldn't allow me to do so, as well as some other health problems. But, you know, the fact is, for you guys to do what you did, it was pretty remarkable. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
I'm going to start off on the Canadian side here because, well, I'm Canadian, and I have that right. You know, Trevor, I'm going to bring you in here for a couple of minutes here. And I would like for everyone to know a little bit about you, because since you were last on last year, we have had a huge jump in our listenership. Like, I'm talking massive jump in our listenership. So what made you decide to join the Canadian Armed Forces?
9/11 would be the perfect example of why I joined. And I tried to get in out of high school, and at the time the Canadian Forces were doing cutbacks, so it was very difficult to get into the military. They pretty much told me I had to be the Prime Minister's kid or native of descent. I was neither, so I looked into other aspects in my life, and it wasn't until 9/11 happened that I saw recruitment videos like on the same telecasts, and it was just, okay, well, maybe I'll try again. And sure enough, it took me about 3 months to get through the door, and a couple of years before I was overseas, and the rest is history, I guess.
And when you decided to join, and 9/11 was such a pivotal moment for so many people when it came to the military, did you have any second thoughts about it? Did you have any regret about it? Was it something that, when you made up your mind, Trevor, that it was something that you had to do?
Actually, to be honest, my first reaction was complete anger. And I just could not believe what was happening, what was going on. And I just wanted to do what I could to make a difference. I didn't even think twice about it. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I just looked into it, filled out the paperwork, and set my goal on getting in.
What did your family say when you decided to make this decision to go? Because immediately you must have known that after 9/11 happened, you were heading to the Middle East.
Actually, the the funniest comment came from my mother. Actually, my brother and my mother came to Edmonton, Alberta, where I was stationed, and they came and saw me before I went overseas. And the thing that my mother said to me was, whatever I do, don't be myself. And I kind of looked at her and I go, what do you mean, don't be myself? And her exact words out of her mouth were, in tears, were, don't go playing the hero.
And you know what? As someone who knows you personally, I know exactly what she was talking about. See, in our younger days, Trevor and I used to be roommates. We hung out quite a bit, and then unfortunately, due to a lifetime of, things happen and you kind of lose touch, but we were able to regain touch thank you to social media. And I'll never forget this. Trevor and I had a little bit of a falling out, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But one day I get a message on Facebook that he added me on Facebook. And Trevor said to me, hey, man, I'm sorry about the past. I'm hoping you can forgive me. And I'm like, hey, not a problem. I said, what have you been up to? I said, where are you living? He goes, well, right now I'm in Kandahar. I said, what the hell are you doing in Kandahar? And he told me the entire story about why he joined, just like he just told you, and I was blown away by it. And, I'm very glad you made it, my friend. I'm very glad you made it, because I know Canada has not taken the losses that the United States has in the conflicts that are going on in the Middle East, but you brought it home to me, and you really did. And I just want to say thanks, buddy, for doing that, because I never thought I would have someone so close to home go over there and do that. And, I'm sure some of the things you've seen, as well as Eric Squared has seen, it was traumatic, and I'm sure you still have the nightmares. But I know the type of guy you are, because when Trevor and I used to go out back when we were 19, 20, 21, it was feast or famine, and if somebody was giving me heck, Trevor was the first guy in there to go punch his lights out, to be honest. I mean, that's just the stand-up guy he was and is. So, I'm pretty amazed for you, my friend, and I'm in awe of what you have accomplished.
Well, it's just, I grew up to be a better person, I think.
Oh, stop being so friggin' humble.
Our heads were when we were younger, right?
Exactly. I bring in James Tyson now, because I think, James, our technical issues with you are cleared up here.
Yes.
And it's good to hear your voice, my friend, because you're going to be on with me on the 30th as well, as we will be celebrating the 2-year anniversary of Spaced Out Radio, which is kind of fun to think about.
2 years?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have anything to wear.
Me either. I still don't know what I'm going to wear. I'm going to find a bow tie somewhere. Now, James,
Yeah.
you just recently retired from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police after, I believe, 28 years.
In January, I will be retired.
Okay.
Retired. One of the two.
And yet your father served in World War II. I would love for you to take a few moments, if you don't mind, to tell us about your brave father.
My dad grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and at a high school. World War II was just ramping up in England, and not quite in England, but across Europe. And he and a bunch of his buddies on his soccer team decided they would, this is what we do. We go off, and a whole different culture back there. But that was kind of his interpretation was you're almost expected to go. So instead of waiting around, they all kind of got together and decided on what branches of the armed forces they'd go into. Some wanted to go into the Navy because we're on the coast. And my dad thought about it and said, no, somebody blows that boat out from underneath you, you got very little comfort. It's you're either in the cold North Atlantic or you're in a life raft. And he didn't, because my dad was more or less a good socialist, but a pacifist, he didn't want to actually look at somebody else and have to see them die. So he decided to go into the Air Force, which was funny because I thought, someone removes the aircraft from underneath you. There's a bit of an issue, that one law you don't want to break, called gravity. Well, he went off at 18 years old. Went into what was called the Commonwealth Conversion Force. So he was put into a bomber crew, a light bomber, a B-25 Mitchell, with people from the other countries in the Commonwealth, so Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and the UK. And that's what made up this squadron. And his job back in the day he was a gunner in the top turret on the B-25 Mitchell, and their job was to go after what they were told were excavation sites in France. Later we find those excavation sites were actually the V-1 and later the V-2 missile bases that they were launching from. So that's what he did. And his last sortie was on D-Day, or D-Night, at 11:20 p.m., and he was really pissed off because he wanted to fly over imagine going across the English Channel on June 6th and seeing that, all those boats and all those guys bringing gear up onto the beaches. But he went at 11:20 at night, so it was dark, and of course he didn't see it. So they had to go to a place called Villers-Bocage and going after Panzer headquarters there. So after that, he was pulled off. He had 33 missions in, and he was pulled out to be a training officer for other gunners. And, he's 20 now, 21. He came back at 22, so he's gone for 4 years. Well, he actually wasn't overseas for 4. In Canada is where they trained the bomber crews. And then when he went over, but he came back at 22. So to fly those missions, some of those did bother him because one of his buddies' aircraft blew up beside him. And, of course, that was compounded when he got home, and his buddy's mom called my dad up, who's now 22 years old, and said, how come you're alive and my son is dead?
God.
Which probably isn't the question you want to hear when you've just come back home and you've lost some friends. So, but that was my dad, and later on became a member of the Air Crew Association out here in Western Canada. Funny enough, one of the other places that he used to bomb, but it was the U-boat facilities along the coast of France, well protected. I think they're still there, and the gun emplacements. But one of the guys in his seniors complex, at the age of 15 or 16, was a U-boat crew member, and they would talk about my dad's planes coming in, and they just run downstairs knowing that nothing would happen to them. And it was kind of weird. There's the bomber and the bombee talking about World War II.
Incredible. Eric Markham, you served in the United States Navy on the USS Nimitz, I believe 6 years. Tell us about your days in the service and where you got to sail off to.
Oh, mostly the Indian Ocean, doing a big lazy circle called Bagel Station. We'd go out and just sort of do this lazy circle out in the middle of the IO, and then every once in a while we'd get a little bit near land. It was, we were basically a floating airport, so it was, at the time, it was the biggest aircraft carrier in the fleet. It was the first of the Nimitz class aircraft carriers. Let's see, we saw Naples, Italy. I took the train to Sorrento. Livorno, France. We pulled into Palma de Mallorca, which was one of my favorites. And on my birthday, the year I turned 20, we had pulled into port in Monaco, and where we were having where Fleet Landing was, and the very next week was going to be a pit for one of the Monaco Grand Prix race teams. So I spent a nice day walking around looking for Jacques Cousteau and drinking nice wine. It was one of my more pleasant times.
But Eric, you were in the heat of the moment when tensions with Libya and Iran were acting up, were you not?
Yes, we just before the two MiGs got shot down just before I went in. While I was in boot camp, Anwar Sadat was assassinated. We were in classes, and they motioned the petty officer that was teaching the class to the door, which was kind of unheard of, and then they wheeled in a TV and showed us the news report that showing Anwar Sadat being assassinated, and all of us kind of knew that we were going to be Sixth Fleet, so most of us were like, and Sixth Fleet operates in the Mediterranean along the that part of the Middle East, and we were all kind of, holy crap, we thought things could get really hairy now. It was peacetime, but there was always that edge. And I didn't know it had happened, but I got a kind of a upsetting letter from my mother. This is pre-internet days. This is back in the 80s, and you had to wait for snail mail to show up on the deck once in a while. And my mom was just kind of upset because Gaddafi was sitting there saying he was going to turn the Gulf of Sidra into a Gulf of Blood and blow the Nimitz out of the water and all this crap. And at that point, we were not even seeing land, so we're like, how would he get to us? But I had to send her a letter right back saying, I wouldn't worry about it. We got enough F-14s and A-7s on this thing that there's not going to be a problem.
And the one thing that you told me, and you've told me this in a private conversation, is on an aircraft carrier, if you're hit, the key is to get the aircraft off. To hell with everybody else. Get the aircraft launched. Can you maybe go through that? Because to me, that's probably the scariest thing you have ever said to me.
That was our mission. We would get, the idea was you could launch. Oh, let me see. You could launch you couldn't launch them at the same time, but there was what we called the waist cat. When you look at the modern aircraft carrier, you've got the deck that runs forward, forward to aft, and then you've got that canted deck that sort of takes off at a little angle. You can launch aircraft off both of those off those catapults, just one right after another. And the idea was, if the trouble hit, we were to get all the aircraft off. You started with like the F-14s, the A-7s, and then the support craft like the A-6 intruders. We had, this is dating myself. This is the kind of aircraft we had back then. But I think the last thing that went off was probably the S-3, the anti-submarine warfare aircraft. But you got the fighters and all that stuff off, and then basically, if you got blown out of the water, that's tough luck. You did what you're supposed to do. One of the things, though, about aircraft like an aircraft carrier, any naval ship, it's not like the Titanic where it's like an ice tray. You can shut the door, but the wall above is still open. Each compartment, the aircraft carriers are extremely compartmentalized. And when you're under general quarters, every door, every hatch, even the toilets are battened down. I mean, everything is locked down and watertight. And they put a lot of a lot of effort into making sure those seals around the doors and everything are tight. In theory, you can break that ship into pieces, and the individual pieces can float by the air trapped in them. In theory. Fortunately, I never had to find out for sure.
We bring in Eric Cooper now. Eric is our most decorated veteran of the bunch here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He spent 19 years as a medic in the United States Army. Eric, thank you for doing that.
No problem.
Eric, when you joined the Army, was it a lifelong goal, or was it just a decision you made because at the time maybe you felt you didn't have anything else to do?
You know what? Yeah, not at all. In fact, it's funny because I graduated high school. I went to college for 2 different colleges for the next year, 2 years. So I was 20 when I joined the Army. And I went to Swiggert's Bible College. That was my last one. I came back and didn't have any goals, didn't have anything to do. And my mom thought I was wasting away, so she talked to my aunt, and it's funny, it's not, but I wasn't laughing back then, but my aunt called the recruiting office and was like, you know what, my nephew needs something to do. So all of a sudden, one day I get a phone call from this Army recruiter, and he wanted me to come down and, check him out. So I was like, okay. I went down to their office, I took their little quick test, and they're like, well, darn, you scored high. We need to get you to MAPS, and that's MAPS is, for the ones that don't know, is where you go to basically enlist. That's where you pick out your career that you want to do and whatnot. And he said, we're going to go tomorrow. I'm like, okay. And I went home, and the Navy calls. Like, we need to talk to you. Like, no, I'm sorry, I already joined the Army. And so I went to MAPS. Combat medic is what I wanted, and combat medic's what they got me. And I raised my hand. I thought I was locked in. Kind of terrified at this point in time, but they had me convinced that the government's going to come after you if you try to back out now. Well, I could have backed out for the next 6 months, but I didn't know it. By the time I realized that I was already in, wouldn't say happy, but I was in. I was doing my job, and that was that. My parents were proud. They were scared once they realized, oh, hell, he's actually going to do it now. But that's how I got in.
Now, did you expect to see as much combat time as you did?
Oh, no, not at all. In '89, when I went in, and I actually didn't get to AIT, which is your advanced training, it was about 90. You figure Desert Storm didn't kick off until end of 90, early 91. And so, no, not at all. Yeah, not at all. My first duty station was in Germany. I was in 1st 16th Infantry in Stuttgart. And Desert Storm kicked off. We were listening to the radio. We were listening to Bush actually kicking off planes to Kuwait. And part of our unit went. As a medic, they tasked me out to screen reservists that were coming to Panzerkaserne in Berlin and Stuttgart. And my job was to screen medical records, give shots, that kind of thing, get them ready to go. First 16th was deactivating. I was only a private, and I only been in the Army for, under a year. So they were like, well, you can't go home yet because you haven't been in Germany long enough. So they transferred me to the Black Horse, the 11th Armored Cavalry, which is probably my the favoritist and most honorable unit that I've ever served with. I went there. Desert Storm was going. They did the ceasefire. We got activated to go into Kuwait a week after the ceasefire to make sure Saddam didn't come back. Now, understanding a cavalry regiment is completely self-contained. You need no support elements. Nothing. We had our own aviation units. We had our own chow hall. We had everything in one regiment. You don't need any more Army at all. It's nothing but armor, nothing but howitzers, which are artillery. We had our own engineers. We had it all. So we went into Kuwait in 91, the week after the ceasefire. It was called Operation Positive Force. It wasn't Desert Storm, Desert Shield. It was after all that. And we were there for 6 months and got rotated out. That was my first combat tour. And actually, I had to raise my right hand and swear to go. They weren't going to take me. So I'm a sole survivor. I'm an only child. And I was like, no problem. I raised my right hand. I went. And one thing, there's a blood bond with soldiers. When your friends are going, I'll be damned if you're not going to go. That's just how it is in the military in general. I think the rest of our guys here can attest to that as well.
Yep.
Same thing with Somalia. Getting to that after Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Operation Positive Force, I went to Fort Lewis. I was in an ambulance company, and we went to Somalia in '93. And again, we can't take you because you're a sole survivor. Like, oh hell no, I'll raise my right hand. I don't care what I have to do, and they took me. But after Somalia pretty much messed everybody up, and I'm not sure how many actually stayed in, but a majority of us got out of the Army, and a majority of us went back into the Army afterwards once we got readjusted and whatnot. And I took a 7-month break, went back into the Army, and it was May of '94 that I got out, and I went back in January of '95. Now, they wouldn't let me be a medic because at that time they froze all prior service slots for medics. Why, I don't know. It's politics. And so I became a truck mechanic. But every unit I went to was like, oh, you were a medic for a second. Okay, so I was a medic and a truck mechanic in every unit I went to after that. From there, I went back to Germany, and Bosnia kicked off. My boss was like, Specialist Cooper, you've already been to 2 combat tours. I'm not going to make you go to Bosnia. But do you want to? And I said, you know what? No, not really. I'm still recovering from Somalia, and that'll take forever. So he said, Specialist Hogard, pack your stuff. You're going. And so I was basically a push mechanic for the unit that went to Bosnia from our aviation cavalry unit I was in. From there, I went back to Fort Lewis. From there, I went to Fort McPherson, Atlanta, Georgia. Nothing significant. My last 2 combat tours was, again, out of Fort Lewis, so 29th Signal. January 04 to January 05, I was in Balad, Iraq, and we received mortars. We got back out of that one in November 05 to October 06. We were in Tel Afar, Iraq. So that pretty much sums up my combat careers.
Heavy stuff, man. And, I want to take a couple of moments here, if you don't mind, on a couple of different ways here. And, James, I'm going to start with you, but I want to talk about the family aspect, because I think a lot of people who haven't served, including myself, nobody in my family has served. And the reason why, my grandfather was drafted into the Canadian Armed Forces during World War II. And in Canada, you had a choice whether you wanted to go to war, whether you wanted to go into the mines or into the bush camp. And my grandfather had a number of friends get killed early. And my great-grandfather, his dad, literally begged him not to sign up for the service. My great-grandfather was 15 years old when him and his buddy ran away when the Bolshevik Revolution came through the Ukraine and literally killed my great-grandfather's brother right in front of him. And my great-grandfather had nightmares over that situation, having to flee home at 15 years old, no family. He never saw his family again, just him and his buddy hopped on a train and somehow, luckily, made their way to North America with not a dime in their pocket. And he literally begged my grandfather to go into the bush camps, so that way my grandfather and his brothers would not have to go off to war. And there were 4 boys that were eligible. And from that moment forward, my grandfather always said, he felt bad that he never went. He felt like he didn't deserve it, the life that he was given. But at that point in time, it's a different time, a different era. You listened to your parents. It didn't matter if you were 18, 19, 20 years old. You listened to your parents. And that was the decision that was made. But he always said to me, point blank, if you ever see a veteran, make sure you shake their hands and say thank you. He was very, very astute about that. James, you living and growing up with a military father, how did this sculpt your family growing up? Was it difficult at times?
It was not really anything to do with the Second World War, though. My dad, when he got back, he joined the Reserve Army here in the so all through the 50s and up into the 60s. As you were, he probably joined in the late 50s. And he was an officer in that. He was a lieutenant. And his responsibility in the he was part of the communications during the Cold War. And Eric, if you were living up in this part of the, Eric Cooper, if you were living up in the Pacific Northwest back in the early 60s, you may have remembered B-52s taking off out of Washington State, flying north up to Alaska, going to their failsafe, back. And twice a day, we'd see them. As kids, we'd see them at 9 o'clock in the morning heading north, about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, coming back down. And then there was another one. They're always overlapping. We had air raid sirens in our neighborhood. Every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, they would test them. If you knew that if they went off any other time than Wednesday at 3, then there was something to worry about. And my dad was given cyanide capsules to give my mother and my sister and I, because his unit was responsible for the communications and the evacuation and re-entry of this part of the Pacific Northwest in Canada in the event of a nuclear attack. And they would start that evacuation about 100 miles east of here. Actually, not 100 miles, but 100 kilometers east of where I am right now. So everything from 100 miles or 100 kilometers east to the water was written off. And they did that because they didn't want anybody worrying about their family at home when they had to do a job. So that was the biggest stressor in the family that I found out later. My mom, of course, didn't know my dad had those pills. And when he left, he handed them back in, and it was years later that came up in a conversation. We just about pooped. But it didn't happen. So that was that part of the military, and I think that's what stressed him out a lot more than being a teenager or in your early 20s, rumbling and going deaf between two radial engines for a few hours a night, or maybe a couple of hours a week. But, you know, that the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis, that is what really aged my dad in those few years.
Did he ever talk about the war, or was he quite silent about it, James?
Well, he talked about it, unfortunately, like a lot of the old World War II vets, they always talked about it after you took that in social studies in high school. When you had all the questions, you want to know everything. It was always like 40 years later when they're out hanging out with a bunch of old guys. When he joined the Aircrew Association, all those guys in their 70s and 80s and 90s, then he talked about it. And I'm like, Dad, this is stuff I wanted to know when I was a kid. But I've got his logbook, and you know, I've got a few other bits and pieces. I do my own. Thank goodness for the internet. I can do my own research on it now. But, you know, he really didn't talk about what was going on and what happened. He did talk about the death of his buddy and the weird phone call he got from his buddy's mom. So obviously that did affect him. He moved back home with his mom and dad in Vancouver when he got back. And he had like the old Winchester rifle kicking around and a Lee Enfield. In fact, he was part of the group at the Armory when the Lee Enfield rifles came back to the Armory. They would take them, and they had for military use, for some reason, they had a full wooden stock. On the force stock was all wood. They were cutting them down, sanding them, and selling them for $5. So that .308 rifle is everywhere in Canada, behind everybody's kitchen door, basically, after the war. So he had one of those, and my grandmother and grandfather woke up one night. My dad was screaming, "Bail out, bail out, bail out, we're on fire, we're on fire." And he's doing what people used to call, if you can imagine this, it's sometimes called the Vietnam crawl, where you're down kind of wiggling along across the floor with a rifle across your arms, and you're like on elbows and squealing across the floor, and he's screaming. So they got rid of all the firearms in the house and sent my dad off to the doctor to give him somebody to talk to. But yeah, he came back at 22 with a couple of nightmares. But it was that Cold War. My gosh, it scared the heck out of me when he was talking about it.
Trevor, I want to bring you in here. Is there a big military background in your family, or are you the first to serve?
Apparently, my grandfather on my mother's side actually trained bomber pilots as a civilian pilot. He wasn't in the military, but he was a civilian pilot who actually did training. And then my grandfather on my, the guy I grew up calling Dad, his father was a bomber pilot as well, or had something to do with bombers. And apparently my biological father was in the Marine Corps during Vietnam.
So did you feel a sense of duty? I know 9/11 really pushed it, but as part of family lineage, did you ever hear the stories or hear anything that kind of made you think that, hey, this might be something that I want to do or that I should look into because of the family line?
Well, growing up as a kid, kids want to be firefighters or they want to be a cowboy or whatever, right? You're playing guns with your buddies. It seems like a cool thing to do back then. Then you grow up and everything kind of changes. And then, up until 9/11, I had given up all real hope of joining the military. So it wasn't even on my mind up until 9/11. And then it was like the switch was back on and I was determined to get in.
I can totally understand that. How about you, Eric Cooper? Did you have a long family lineage in the military, or were you the first?
No, my dad was in the Navy for 2 years before I was born. Back in the probably mid '60s, he was on ships as a diesel mechanic. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know he went to the Philippines and he did some Oriental. He was on a boat all the time. I wasn't even born, so I have no idea. I had two uncles. One was killed in action in Vietnam. The other came back and committed suicide. And my aunt was in the Army for, I believe, 2 years as a dental tech, and she's the one who called the recruiter and got me in back in '89. Other than that, to my knowledge, that's it.
And Eric Markham, how about the military history in your family?
Oh, we go way back. My father's Uncle Chase was a decorated Navy veteran in both World War I and World War II. He had, seems like he went back on, in World War I, I can't remember what he got decorated for. I think his ship got blown out from under him. In World War II, he went back on to get, survivors when the ship was sinking, and was decorated for that. And he was also listed as killed in action. So once they got back and he went home, this is in the 40s. You didn't have Facebook, or you didn't have even telephones for the most part. Here's Chase walking down the driveway to visit his parents, and there's his grieving father sitting on the porch. And here's Chase. The old man thought, my great-grandfather thought he was seeing a ghost. There was also a Charles Tuttle on board. So, of course, the the abbreviation for Charles is CHAS, and anyhow, it was a bureaucratic mess up. They were glad they were glad he wasn't dead. My father served in the U.S. Navy. My childhood hero, my Uncle Paul, was one of my childhood heroes. My Uncle Paul he had started as a airman recruit, and when he retired, he was I believe lieutenant or lieutenant commander. Anyhow, he switched over to officer, and he was one of the guys that flew around in the storm chaser planes. He was a weatherman, and he was in the plane that the Navy sends through the hurricane. So, I had top bragging rights in third grade because my uncle flew through hurricanes. So, and then it came my turn, and there was no question I was going to be in the Navy. I think since I could remember, I was going to be in the Navy. So, and I've got one. My stepson's in the Navy, so the tradition is carrying on.
Very understandable, and it is a proud tradition, especially in the United States. But Eric, was the military and the action that family members saw, and I'm talking to Eric Markham here, was that something that was just kept quiet? Because we hear so many veterans and stories of veterans where they just can't talk or cope with what happened and the destruction and damage and the loss that they saw.
I never met my Uncle Chase. My Uncle Paul talked freely, but there's a difference between somebody who was in during a hot war and then the Cold War. Now, my father was in Korea, but because he was an only child and my grandfather was no longer alive, they wouldn't send him into that theater. So he was on basically they patrolled Europe up around the North Atlantic. They operated in the North Atlantic, and they went around Europe. It was, I forgot what the name of the cruise was, but pretty much just keeping an eye on, like, they would pull into Germany, Belfast, Ireland, different, they were in that theater. But my dad, to this day, he no matter what you say, he can link it, and it will make him go into his stories. He is very open, and my Uncle Paul was open. But then again, they didn't serve like a World War II vet did. Uncle Paul's thing about flying through hurricanes kept me just on the edge of my seat. My dad's stories about what he saw when he was in Europe, and his time aboard the USS Pickering. I think that must have been the greatest, best time of his life, because he can talk about it like it was yesterday. Always has. So, and it used to be, oh God, he's going that. As I've gotten older now, it's like, I need to get this stuff down. This is family history but none of those vets that I knew that, in my family were unwilling to talk about it. I've known some non-vets that couldn't get a sentence into trying to tell their story without breaking down. So there's a big dichotomy there. The World War II guys came home to ticker tape parades. The Vietnam guys, to the dishonor of our nation, came home to a much worse situation.
Being spit on.
Yeah, and just it makes me want to vomit when I think of that. But that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. James, if you want to cut in with any questions at any time, feel free to do so. Trevor, I want to ask you, when you got home from Afghanistan, and later on in the show we're going to get to your experiences there. When you got home from Afghanistan, did you ever get a chance maybe at a Legion or at other ceremonies or what have you, get a chance to talk to other veterans of, say, World War II or the Korean conflict and have a conversation with them? And if so, what was that like?
Well, yeah, every Remembrance Day or regiment splits up and goes to various legions and events and such of remembrance around in neighboring towns and what have you, especially in Alberta. Yeah, to me, I mean, I know I'm called a vet, but to me, the guys that were really deep and in the elbows and the crap and the nastiness of war are definitely guys that were in, Vietnam, World War II, obviously World War I. The type of war in Afghanistan is nothing like any veteran would have gone through in, say, Vietnam or Korean War or even World War II. So, yeah, I mean, you can tell the average person of stuff you've seen and done, and they're like, oh, my God, that's terrible. Well, obviously they've never talked to someone who was in one of those other conflicts who are the true heroes to me, because they have really been in the nastiness of war. Like, I have not even come close to seeing the nastiness of how war is. I mean, they were truly in the worst possible. I mean, wars now, I mean, for anyone living in North America, how long do our wars really last now, right? They're not going on years and years and years. We go there for a term to do what we have to do, and then our governments decide that we're pulling out, and it seems as soon as we pull out, the bad shit happens again. So, I mean, at least those type of veterans you talk to, those wars ended.
And they didn't get to go home. Like a World War II vet, when you went overseas, you were there for the long term. You didn't have tours of duty, Trevor.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So when you were talking to them, and you brought up a very interesting point, Trevor, where you say, what you went through in Afghanistan is nothing compared. Would you say that's because of technology? There really is no hand-to-hand combat anymore, because everything, if you're on patrol, everything is done with scopes and sight lines and trying to stay as far away from the enemy compared to what they say went through in Vietnam or Korea or the World Wars, where there were times where you were literally in a knife fight with someone trying to kill them because they were going to kill you.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, as you know, I was in the Armored Corps, so the worst thing an armored soldier could ever hear is fixed bayonets. And
right.
That means it's a really bad thing, and yeah, you're gonna do a type of war that you would hope nobody ever has to do. And I have never really talked to anybody in the last 20 years other than veterans of World War II or say Vietnam or what have you, that have actually had to, fight someone one-on-one to, survive.
I had a client one time, a couple of years ago. He came in to my office and, well, he was kind of in our lobby area, and he had a Vietnam veteran hat on. And he moved to Canada about 20 years ago. And I walked up to him, I said, "Sir, were you a Vietnam veteran?" And he goes, "Yes." So I stuck out my hand, and he kind of just stared at it. And I said, "Thank you for doing that." I said, "Even though we're in Canada, thank you for doing that." He broke down right in our lobby because I was the first person that he had ever had in his life say thank you for serving. And as you said, Eric Markham, it is such an outrage that Vietnam veterans are just starting to, almost 40 years later, get the recognition that they deserve, and that people are waking up that they weren't baby killers, they weren't women killers, that they were sent there to do a job, most of them against their will because of the draft, and, they came home like you said, Coop, getting spit on, getting yelled at, bottles thrown at them, people hating them for no reason. I mean, we talk about racism today. That's what they were experiencing just because they wore the Army greens or the Marine greens in Vietnam. So, Coop, when you, and I want to turn this question to you if you don't mind, and we only got, actually, you know what, I'm going to hold off on that because we only have about less than a minute left before we got to go to break. Quickly, quick answer. Coop, would you do it again?
Hell yeah.
Trevor, would you do it again?
Where do I sign?
Eric Markham, would you hop back on the ship?
I would. As a matter of fact, I would probably choose a different branch of service, and I would probably be Army.
Well, that's very cool, gentlemen. We are doing our Remembrance Day ceremony tonight on Spaced Out Radio. It is an annual tradition as I am co-hosting with James Tyson. One of these days, he'll ask a question, because James asks very pointed and intelligent questions. He knows his stuff here. But I want to say thank you once again to everybody listening. And if you have veterans in your family, make sure you give them a big hug. And I know you probably supported what they do as well. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Revealette Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, revealetteR&R.wix.com/RevealetteR&R.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness. You can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for a ride as we celebrate Remembrance Day here in Canada, Veterans Day down in the United States. We want to welcome in everyone from the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.5 FM in New Orleans and 160 countries around the world. Thank you for allowing us to be a new part of your evening. SpacedOutRadio.com is our website. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember it is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password in the Spaced Out Radio SOR Space Travelers Club, as he does it every single night. Axiomatization. Something like axiomatization. Whatever. I knew I was going to butcher it. He does this on purpose. He tries to make me lose it on the air. Axiomatization. Let's try that one out. That is your password. We'll get to it again in the next hour. If you're a space traveler, you know what to do with it. Everyone's laughing at me right now. That's okay. Because I know Bill does this on purpose. Thank you, Bill. I hope your Toronto Maple Leafs finish dead last once again. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows on iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. We bring in our panel of guests tonight. James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend, served 28 years in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Eric Markham, who served in the United States Navy. Eric Cooper, who served in the United States Army. And Trevor Wright, who served in the Canadian Armed Forces in the Army Division. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Coop, we were just going to get to a question with you in regards to it, Remembrance Day / Veterans Day. Do you consider yourself a veteran when you are talking to people who served in conflicts before you? What are those conversations like?
I have more respect for them than, I won't say that. I have more respect for them because, like was said earlier, they've seen more combat than anyone today, other than some of the infantry, special forces, Rangers, Navy SEALs, the frontline emergency response military, I guess you could call them more or less. Because when you're in the trenches and you have back then, sometimes single shot, that's combat. When you're told to affix bayonets and you're going hand to hand for your life, that's combat. Most of our guys today, with the exception of like the door kickers and the infantry units that actually do patrols and get attacked all the time, they do see hand-to-hand combat sometimes. But yeah, when I'm talking to a Vietnam vet or prior, most definitely. And I've actually been, I know a few Vietnam vets, and based on Somalia, based on the mortars we've taken, they do have just as much respect for our troops today that have seen combat than they do their own. Just the ones I've talked to, spoken with. So, yeah.
Eric Markham, I bring you in on this because I'll ask you the same question, as well as the fact that you have family that are deployed right now, and I'd love it if you could give your kids a shout out.
My oldest daughter, my oldest daughter Lisa, and her husband are E7s in the Air Force. They just came back from Mildenhall, England, where my oldest daughter had the best intel unit in the entire Air Force. We've got the award trophy in our in our home to show that. Son David is in 6th Fleet on a guided missile cruiser, Aegis class, the San Jacinto, and we're very proud of them. And we hope we hope he gets home safe, and we hope Lisa doesn't have to go back. She's been, I think she was in Afghanistan once and in Iraq twice, and had a rocket-propelled grenade go through her tent. Had some other, I think she had something horrible happen in Lebanon while she was there. So we hope that things calm down and that we don't see harm come to any of them.
As a parent, do you live in fear of that on a daily basis?
I worry a lot about David because he's actually out in a theater of operations. Right now, the other two are relatively safe, but I mean, they could be deployed. Yeah, we don't want to see it get nasty. David's on a ship that is a floating missile platform. I mean, he's on a very safe ship. He is in a better situation than if he was on aircraft carrier, because those Aegis class cruisers like the San Jacinto are amazing. They're a little bit old. They're long in the tooth like me, but they're a very good platform for war. They're designed to be kick-ass. So I feel better for him than if he was on an aircraft carrier. Like the last time he deployed, he was on the Truman, and I know how stressful sea ops is on an aircraft carrier. It's 24/7. There's no, I'm going to hit the rack for 8 hours. You're going to stand your watches. You're going to have your general quarters drills, and I'm sure he has a lot of that. But they keep it pretty well amped up. Like you're at war when you're on an aircraft carrier. They did when I was And it's in the back of your head. I'm sure what Donna is every day. She doesn't like hearing something about, we're at DEFCON 4 or some kind of fear-mongering crap like that, because it makes an icy chill go down her spine. And mine, too. I mean, that's just... I have a different outlook because I've been through it. But as a mother, I'm sure every little news report, everything she hears makes those icy fingers crawl down her back. And as my wife pointed out in the chat room, he's a new daddy. So we're looking forward to him getting back in December.
I was just going to say that. Donna, your wife, has posted in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, we want David home. He is our baby. Plus, he's a new daddy. So, let's get him home ASAP. And this is the reality. This is the world we live in right now, Trevor, where, unfortunately, there's a bunch of conflict that continues to happen around the world, mainly staged in the Middle East. Whether it's ISIS, whether it's American-made, whether it's Russian-made, there's a lot of tensions right now going on. And when you look back at it and you see your brothers and sisters still out there, and you've been retired now for a few years, you mentioned you would go back in a heartbeat. What would it take for you to have to re-enlist?
Well, I'm getting to be an old fella now, so in all honesty, it would take a very nasty travesty of some terrorist organization literally attacking the world again like they did in 9/11. Or someone invading our own home soil, you know what I mean?
Could you still be called back in the Canadian Armed Forces?
I did sign up on what is called a supplement reserve, so I could, but it would have to be in real dire straits.
Yeah. Dave, that's what the members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, too, come under the same kind of umbrella. And it's part of they couldn't call me back. I think I'm too old. If they had to call me back, there's something has really hit the fan. Because it all stems from the military training that we went through, or the regimental training, and because we fall under that umbrella. So if that happens, we could get called up too.
And, James, I want to ask you a question, because what a lot of people don't know is the RCMP, of course, you're Canada's police force, but you're a paramilitary group, too. And the RCMP has been called to numerous world conflicts.
Yeah. We've got a guidon, and a guidon is you'll see it, it's a battle honors, and we have 5 battle honors right now going back to the Northwest Rebellion in Canada, then Siberia, the Crimea, World War I, World War II, and actually, I can't remember. I think it was also in South Africa for the Boer War, up to World War II, and depending on how many people had boots on the ground in Afghanistan, for what length of time, I think we're going to get one for Afghanistan too. I think it started coming around in the 1950s. Actually, the RCMP in the First and Second World War were those guys who, once you took prisoners in, they're the ones who did the interrogation, and which relieved fighting men to do fighting jobs. There's a number of Royal Canadian Mounted Police buried in Italy who were taken out, who died overseas in the Second World War and in the First World War. United Nations operations, I think they were in the Congo, a couple of them back in the 60s, really started picking up. Friends of mine were in Operation Matador in 1989, 1990 in Namibia in Africa. Before that, there was a few of them in Operation Calumet in the Syria, in the Sinai in Egypt. Oh, they're all over the place. Western Sahara. I'm just kind of going through a list right now here, just in case you ask the question. They're part of the United Nations Transitional Authority in Cambodia, actually doing some kind of off the record work there. We're in Somalia up to a very short time in around 93 and got pulled out. Really big into Haiti in early 90s, 93 to 96. Then in Rwanda, where we had a peacekeeping mission there for 3 years through the Rwanda genocide. A big influence in the UN mission in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Bosnia, in 95 to 2000. And there are still RCMP members there doing follow-up on the mass graves and war crimes. So they will rotate in and out still, but aren't stationed there full-time like they were. They're also in support missions from 96 to 2000 in Haiti. One of the guys I worked with when he went back to Haiti in 2004, he was there about a week and a half before he and the two French policemen he was with were basically taken hostage. And if this kid that I know, I used to supervise him, he luckily is Haitian and spoke Creole and French, and he talked the guys out of killing them. All they wanted was their sidearms and whatever money and jewelry they had. So he talked them out of it, and they lived through that. But he was supposed to be helping the local government transition and do more policing, except he said the culture was so screwed up with voodoo and things like that that there were murders that would go uninvestigated if they found like a chicken feather on the guy, because no one would prosecute it. Bizarre. Central Africa in 2000, East Timor, my sergeant in my last position, she was in East Timor. They were attacked by the troop, like the local idiots, and the Canadian military were kind of shucking and jiving, like, well, what should we do? What we should do? Luckily, the Australian commandos came in and cleaned everything up and saved their asses. But she's standing there with a 9mm handgun, looking down RPGs with a bunch of guys running down the street, and didn't take too kindly to that. Again, admin positions in Kosovo, Sierra Leone, all over the place. And now we probably, there was Operation Addition Ethiopia, also another mission, that's the Haiti mission, 2004. And it looks like there were some guys in Darfur. It looks like we're going to be going back into Ethiopia. And what was the other one? Peacekeeping in Mali, Senegal and Mali, possibly coming up in the next year and a half. There's still positions in Haiti, and I know back in the day there were people going to, where was that? Not Sinai, but Lebanon. So it's all because of the type of training we have. We're not the only police going there. There's some special, like German police are going, French police, but we're kind of high on the list for the UN to call out for doing policing. And my inspector was in Afghanistan. He did 3 tours, and he was assigned to U.S. Special Forces, and they were going out doing negotiations with village elders and chiefs prior to coalition forces moving into the village. They were negotiating the evacuations of the villages prior to the forces coming in. So he said it was a little bit hair raising, but it's they had to do what they had to do.
Eric Cooper, I bring you in here because you saw a lot of different combat situations. What's the brotherhood and sisterhood like, whether it's with people who are in the service or even contractors who are out there like the RCMP or other contractors? Is it just one big brother and sisterhood in those situations for those of us who've never been there?
Not really. It depends on the contractor. General contractors, yeah. General contractors, yeah. But when you get mercenary types like Blackwater, and they have an attitude all their own because they think they're better than everybody else. And so it depends on the contractor. No, military usually sticks to military. I worked with the Canadian Army. I worked with Somalia, you had everybody, literally everybody. I mean, we're talking countries I've never even heard of, Tunisia, Morocco. I mean, I've heard of Morocco, but I've never dealt with the military side of it. We had the Australian Navy. We had everybody. That was a brother and sisterhood. You had the contractors. No, they have an attitude, an ego. They think they're better than everybody else. No, we're pretty much military against them.
So take us through that brotherhood of the soldier. What is that bond like?
That bond, you will lay your life down for each other, just point blank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't matter what country you're from.
No, not at all. Military is military. If you took that oath, if you took that bond, no, you'll lay your life down for. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what flag they're wearing. If they're in there in the same conflict you're in, hell no.
Trevor, I'm curious to get your opinion of that because you work side by side with Brits, with Americans, and other countries as well in Kandahar and around the surrounding areas. Was it just a big camaraderie? Like, was everybody cheering for each other? I don't really know how to ask this question, but I'm sure you know what I'm trying to get at.
Well, yeah, in Kandahar, everyone has their sections. There's an American section, there's a Canadian section. So, I mean, there's a Canadian house, there's an American PX. Everyone has their little things, but when it comes down to getting the job done, we come together as a brother and sisterhood. It doesn't. That's why I said it doesn't matter if you're all there for the same common goal. I would give my life for someone wearing I know this might sound bad, a French flag as much as I would an American flag or a German flag. We live in a different day and age, and a uniform is a different thing to soldiers, whether you're Navy, you're Air Force. I mean, I dealt with Americans, like I said, Germans, Australians, British. I mean, lots of different countries. Mostly I dealt with the Americans most of the time just because they were usually our air support because we were in tanks. Artillery was mostly Canadian, so we dealt with them a lot. But everything that was flying around was usually American. And, I mean, they're wearing a uniform, and you're there for the common goal. I mean, you'd give your life for theirs just as much as they're going to do everything to give theirs for yours. I mean, it's not, oh, screw them, they're Americans, will deal with it on themselves. No, it's like, they need our help. Let's do this.
Trevor, what was probably your best memory and your worst memory of Afghanistan?
My best memory would have been, and actually it's kind of funny because every holiday we were usually going out the front gates in a convoy of some kind, tanks, trucks, whatever, and our fellas would have a beer call at the Canada House or whatever, and they'd be cheering their beers off the side of our tanks and trucks and stuff. And the funny part is I never was there for one beer call. I was always going out the gate doing something. So, and my worst memory was my mom calling me and telling me my father had passed away.
Mm-hmm. Eric, how about you? Eric Cooper,
Yeah,
that
which
is.
time? Right,
Well-
which time? I'm not going to go into my worst memory. I'll go into a bad memory, but not my worst.
Yeah,
for
that's
obvious
fine.
reasons.
That's fine.
Probably my best memory, I'll keep them both in Somali. My best memory was playing with the kids. I had a troll, and I don't know if anyone remembers the trolls that were big back in the early 90s. They were little troll doll-looking things, and they had like fluorescent orange and hair and whatnot. And I had a troll that rode in my truck. And I drove a lieutenant around for a while, and she would go into meetings with CRFC and Red Cross and all the emergency organizations, and I'd have a troll that would ride in my truck, trying to pave the way and make the Somalis more at ease, because I was on the city streets of Mogadishu, and she would be inside a safe compound. And so I would take the kids' pencils, and I'd take them. Their favorite thing was, American, hey, American, you give me football. So I went back, I got him a football. And I mean, those are good memories. I'm not going to go into bad memories.
That's
I won't
okay.
make it.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Eric Markham, your best memory of serving?
Oh, it spawned a lifetime friendship. I walked in. It was one of the traditions in the Navy is I don't care what your training is, unless maybe you're a nuke. When you get to the ship, you're going to work in a shop for a while, and then you're going to do 3 months of coop cleaning, do housekeeping, and you're going to do 3 months of work in the mess decks. It was my first day. I had just been temporarily assigned to the chief's mess, and I was in the break room for that division. And there's this guy who looked really familiar to me sitting in the TV lounge. And I asked him, I asked him for a cigarette. He loaned me one, he gave me a cigarette. And we're sitting there not really saying anything to each other. We're watching the TV. This other guy comes in, hits me up for a smoke. And I said, no, I borrowed this one from him. And of course, the other guy in the break room gives him a cigarette. And this guy's, he's lighting a cigarette. He's looking at my colleague, and he's looking at me. He's like, "Are you two brothers?" Mm-hmm. And I just, flip up, kind of flip. I looked to who became my friend. I said, "You want to be brothers?" He said, "Sure." And his name is Kenneth Haas. We served together on the Nimitz, and we are still in constant contact. So we've lost contact and managed to find each other pre-internet days. So the bond is there, and that's probably my best memory, because just that bumming a cigarette, making an offhand comment made me a friend for life.
Mm-hmm.
We really were brothers. We really are.
Eric, what's it like working on an aircraft carrier with literally 5,000 other people? You could run into people that were new to you every day, and even to this day, you'll probably be walking. I don't know, maybe go to Disneyland or Las Vegas, see someone on the USS Nimitz with a new USS Nimitz hat on, and you're like, "Well, when did you serve?" And it happens to be the same time you did, but you had no clue who this person was. Does that ever happen?
Yeah. And the opposite, you find my first day on the Nimitz, I ran into a guy who I'd been in boot camp with. And, from that point, it'd been a year since boot camp, because I I graduated boot camp November of 81 from Great Lakes, Illinois, and then I went to San Diego, California, went through basic electricity electronics school, and then Interior Communications Class A school. So I had over a year before I went to the fleet. And there's this guy named Fowler that was kind of a F-up in my boot camp company, and you couldn't miss him because he was about 6'3". And in a dispersal, he was, in a line outside the dispersing office. It's like, holy crap. So yeah, you find people that you had no idea you'd ever see them again, and then there's others that, oh yeah, I was, and yeah, there, because you get to where you know everybody in your division, and because of what I did, I got to know a lot of people in the air wing and in other divisions, and it was interesting. The worst thing is, they're all in front of you at the chow line, all 5,000 of them. I don't care when you get, everybody gets in each other's way in a situation like that because you really are packed in like sardines. And I felt sorry for the air wing guys because they work their tails off. Any flight deck veteran deserves, even in peacetime, flight deck veterans deserve your respect because they have a tough life because their day is 24/7, literally. But yeah, it was interesting. You're in a floating city.
Is there a McDonald's on board?
Actually, we had a forward mess deck called McNimitz, and they served hamburgers, hot dogs, and these awful extruded French fries. I think they were like a dehydrated paste, and if they didn't make them right, when you got your fries, you had a lump of French fries, these gooey strings all fried together. But yeah, we had a McNimitz.
Oh wow, nice. James, would you like to come in?
Yeah, associate of mine down in Ohio had a relative on the Nimitz, and he said that you guys had your own computer servers, and they had 2 or 3 really good teams that played Call of Duty on their computers.
Wow. Yeah. Well, now I was in before, when I was
before computers.
Yeah, really. I was in 1981, and we were still learning. Part of my training was in vacuum tubes, and we still had gear with vacuum tubes in it. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, being an eye seaman, we ran the phones. So when we were in port, we had we were a little sneaky because we could run our own landline. We had to be careful, but we ran our own. We had our own shoreline when we were in port in Virginia. But yeah, when I was in, there was no cell phones, there was no internet. You had snail mail, and if you pulled into a port that had a NATO base, like the organization Bob Hope did all the shows for. Yeah, exactly, that one. USO or USO. USO. Yeah. If there was a base like that, you might be able to call home. But there was. What we did is play Dungeons and Dragons, the old dice and paper. Yeah.
Wow.
For hours. For hours. If we got a chance, we played D&D until our eyes bled. Especially in port, if you had duty and couldn't go ashore, you didn't get liberty. You stood your watch, and you get with your buddies and play Dungeons and Dragons in some corner in a berthing area somewhere, and be in a new world. That you played a lot of spades and a lot of hearts.
Wow.
We had in Afghanistan, you could play. Believe it or not, the Battlefield video game. You could play it in Dubai at the base there, and you could play it in the Kandahar base as well.
We did have Donkey Kong on the mess deck. Yeah, that's how old I am. You could play Donkey Kong. Yeah,
as long as you don't tell us
use real dragons, Dungeons and Dragons.
But yeah, it was. My son David, he gets to do some FaceTime, or he gets some kind of opportunity to where he can have some face-to-face time all over the internet when they're in port. I think everybody's probably waiting in line and to get their turn, but That's
They've
got to help.
They've got internet cafes in probably most of their ports. I know on the Army bases, they have all kinds of internet cafes. You get like a 30-minute block. You can do video chat. You can do Facebook. You can do whatever. So I'm pretty sure the Navy's no different, if not even more advanced than the Army is on that regard.
Yeah, I think it cost me $20 to call my parents for like 2 minutes to say, "Hey, I'm okay. We're in Naples, Italy. You realize Asti Spumani is only $2 a bottle here," and that, which is a story in its own right. But yeah, that was a different time. I'm not saying it's easier on them now. I'm sure there's, the stress is just as bad as it ever was, but being able to see a face from home has got to help.
Oh yeah.
Of course, my mom was good about, she knew I had friends because of the letters home. So for Christmas, my first Christmas at sea, she made me a tin of, Christmas candies, and she soaked the rum balls liberally. And me and my friends, of course, I'm sharing with my friend Kenny, another friend of ours that was Air Wing, Ross, and it dawns on me, it's like, rest of you guys feeling a buzz? we actually caught a boat. It's been out to sea so long. There was, the alcohol had finally left our sailor circulation system, and the rum balls actually gave us a buzz. I guess that was a pretty good memory there too.
Wow. We had the Nimitz here 2 years ago in British Columbia, and even years before that, through the 70s and 80s and early 90s, we had a program where U.S. Navy personnel and shipping would come into the Port of Vancouver. Something like the Nimitz itself couldn't fit under the bridge to get into the port that's here. Right. So they'd be off in the harbor or over on Vancouver Island. And the program was they would announce a month in advance that, let's say, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 naval personnel from the U.S. would be showing up in Vancouver, and they would appreciate people taking them into their home, taking them out for dinner, showing them the sights. And that would get filled up within 72 hours. Everybody had got themselves somebody from the Navy to bring home. And one of my buddies was a Vancouver City policeman, and when Navy personnel came into town, the shore patrol would check in with the local police, and that they would go out with the police and deal with any of their personnel that the call was about. And my buddy was like in this real rough part of town. Wasn't a lot of naval personnel down there, but he had these two guys with him that were like 7 feet tall. He just described them as monsters. And they walked through a bar, and Chris was telling some guys, just knock it off. You guys maybe had too much drinks. And they mouthed off the policeman. Well, these guys just smashed a baton down on the table, cleared all the beer off of it, and looked at him and said, "You don't talk to the police like that." And it shut everybody up in the bar. Because, we're Canadian. We're usually like, policeman tells you to do something, you tell the policeman where to go, and then you negotiate understanding. You don't break the table in half and stare through someone's skull. So Chris said, "Yeah, I love these guys. I wish they'd just come with me to work all the time."
Yeah, no kid.
But it was great. I ran into I shouldn't have ran into it when I was a kid. I was over on one of the Gulf Islands here, and I looked up one morning, and through the fog I could see an island that wasn't there the day before, and it was the USS New Jersey.
Oh my God!
But when you're looking at it from the stern, it looked like a pyramid in the water. And I'm looking at this thing and looking at this thing, and I can't quite figure out what it is. And it started to turn, and I said, "Oh, we don't have any battleships. Somebody turn on the radio." I don't know if this is good or bad. But I did come close to running my dad's 16-foot boat into what I thought was a tugboat pulling a big high barge, but it was actually the conning tower of a nuclear submarine cruising up the Gulf here. So it was. I said, "Oh, that's really good. Oh, I don't think we should get close to these."
Right. I saw the Jersey at Pier 12. I was detached. I guess I was doing some kind of electronic. It might have been solid state devices school or something, or shipboard firefighting. I was on a school assignment there in Norfolk, and the Nimitz went out for something. I forgot what it was, some kind of brush fire. Anyhow, it deployed, and I didn't have to go out with it at the time. While it was out, the Jersey pulled into our slot in Pier 12, and I just, oh my God, to this day, that was one of the most just impressive vessels I have ever seen in my life. I mean, I was on the world's largest aircraft carrier at the time, and it couldn't hold a candle to the Jersey.
I can't imagine one of those things sinking.
Well, sometimes
like iceberg.
Well, there's some. The armor belt on them is, I think, 18 inches thick. That's why, and that was the Jersey, and I think that was the. That class. It wasn't the Jersey class. Iowa class.
Yeah, like I think it's in the Missouri Iowa class.
I think so. Yes,
those big ass ones.
Yeah, and that was the problem. They were so big that they really realized, hey, these things are just floating targets now. Which, I hate to think of that ship. We spent billions retrofitting the Jersey, and then just mothballed it. That incredible ship.
Now they're making the Ghost, a ghost ship.
Oh, that new Zumwalt destroyer or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's supposed to be very stealth.
Yeah, it's a sorry-ass ship named after a sorry-ass admiral.
Mm-hmm.
They can't fire the rail gun because, one, every time you shoot the rail gun, it destroys a piece of it. I think you only get like 20 shots out of your rail gun, which is okay because the missile, the projectiles are $1 million a piece.
What?
Yeah,
uh-huh.
the rounds, the rounds for that. I don't know if I ever
they
finished
made
it. That was made out of titanium and a bunch of other stuff. I look back in the archives.
Technology.
Yeah, I think so. Look back in the archives on the Spacewire. I think a couple months ago I did an article about the Zumwalt. Our own personal family history with Admiral Zumwalt is he did not like the kind of guys like my Uncle Paul who started as enlisted and made it up through the ranks. He was strictly an Annapolis grad guy, so he basically set the tone for that era of screwing over those kind of guys. If my Uncle Paul had wanted to go up, and he had the capabilities and the time in service, my Uncle Paul should have retired as a lieutenant commander. And Zumwalt made sure that people like him were giving very piss-poor choices. Oh, you want lieutenant commander? That's great. You qualify, you'll have it, your commission, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, you're going to spend the next 4 years at Diego Garcia out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Or, some other crap duty that was just mind-numbingly horrible. And Uncle Paul's like, screw it, I got my 20 years in. I'll tell you, I don't need the extra. It wasn't worth it to him to retire that next rank up.
Oh, come on. Diego Garcia, in my conspiracy mind, comes to play. Is where MH Flight 380 is.
No, it's not. It's in the Indian Ocean.
It's not in the ocean. They would have found it.
It's on the. Because I haven't looked there. It's on the Rodriguez Shelf on Rodriguez Island. That's 150 miles where that piece of it washed up.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did find a piece of that.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's where Mary Ellen Rodriguez said it was, and she actually saw it. And the entire crew came to her, and she crossed them over before that was even public, that it went down.
Wow.
And the next day she heard about it.
The conspiracy sounds better. I'm not going to lie.
It always does. It's always prettier. God.
Way to ruin the sexiness of the story.
Oh, it's not sexy.
Right.
Lies. Did you guys, Eric Markham, did you ever work with the United Kingdom Navy? I had a cousin who was on the HMS Coventry that saw a battle down in the Falklands.
We would do joint ops. One of my duties took me down just about as far into the hull of the ship as you could go without getting your feet wet. We had a thing called the pit sword. One of the ways we told our speed was there was this 20-foot inductor blade that stuck right down the bottom of the ship. And you measured speed by how the salt water broke the magnetic flux field around this pit sword. And I forgot what I had to go down there for. But anyway, while I was down there, I kept hearing this weird, 3-toned signal. And it was, I plugged into the Sound Power phone and growled up to the aft IC. It's like, what in the hell is this noise? Is there something wrong? It was a Russian sub pinging us. That was the sonar pinging off of the Nimitz. But I had seen some of those. We operated, and of course, when you're out to sea, you don't see, except maybe during underway replenishment, where you fuel. We had Spruance class destroyers that they ran on. I think it was JP5, some kind of fuel that we had. We would fuel them up. You rarely saw another ship, but we were in one operation, and I saw this really weird. I could tell it was some kind of carrier, but it had this huge humpy front end on it. And I found out later that I think that was the Coventry. It was one of those jump jet carriers. I guess instead of using catapults, they use that ramp. It was something to see. But I've got photographs somewhere. We had a Russian destroyer that most of the torpedoes and missiles on it pointed aft, and this thing was shadowing us. We sent we sent off a helicopter first and dropped flares in the water, and I've got pictures of the flares in the water and the Russian destroyer, and it kept getting closer, playing cat and mouse, and finally we launched a couple F-14 Tomcats. And that changed their mind. But this thing was designed to turn fast and fire everything it had back at us as it was retreating. Most of the weaponry was aimed back, and that was its main goal, is to blow aircraft carriers out of the water.
Oh, okay.
So, I've got, like I said, somewhere around here, I've got pictures of that. I've got the flares in the water and this ship just to it was on our port side out in the mid. And we didn't, I'm like, what the hell is that? We didn't, at the time, you don't know what's going on. And it's not until later that day I was standing, I used to get to stand a watch down in Central Control, which is like if the bridge got knocked out, Central Control would be the secondary bridge. They have, mostly what they had was the reactor boards, the alarm panels, and the 4160 volt bus gauges are down there for the power, and it wasn't until later, went down to stand that watch that I found out what that whole tableau was, that we were being shadowed by a Russian, anti-aircraft carrier destroyer.
Yeah, that's not good.
No. Well,
it could turn into a practice exercise for both them and you.
Well, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
And the previous captain of the Nimitz didn't take any crap. Captain Jack was his name, believe it or not. And he was...
Please tell me his last name wasn't Sparrow.
No, I can't remember what Jack... He was getting off. He was going... He'd made Admiral and was going to fly a desk somewhere when I came on. And this other our captain, Raymond Ilg, he wasn't of quite the same... He was, I guess, more of a diplomat or not as much of a hellraiser as Captain Jack was. But, yeah, they were testing him because the previous deployment, that there was some shenanigans between the Russian Navy and the Nimitz that probably didn't get publicized. But, yeah, some underway replenishment, playing chicken, and it was... kind of hearing about Captain Jack. Of course, you always, the good old days. Whoever the commander was before is the good old days. I'm sure after Captain Ilg got off, that was the good old days compared to whoever got it next. But yeah, it was interesting. You'd find out things, or see weird things because we had a Platt camera down there, and I was amazed at how many people die due to accidents in peacetime.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just sitting there doing our job, floating around, and, I had a pilot friend of mine. We met in Sorrento, Italy. Big guy. I would have thought he was a bosun's mate or something because, he's a big burly guy. He flew the anti-submarine warfare aircraft. About 2 months after I'd met, we'd kind of bonded in Sorrento, drinking, like sailors do. His plane he was doing just a routine mission. His plane got about 200 yards off the bow. Something happened and it hit the drink. It's like, damn. You're not supposed to lose people. We're at peacetime, but we had weird stuff like there was an A7 coming in. We had this the Platt camera is on the flight deck, and it's got cameras aimed and forward and aft. And there was I think it was an A7E intruder. A7, anyhow, one of the older jets coming in. Looked like everything was fine because it was sort of a boring watch. So you'd watch air ops on the Platt camera. All of a sudden, the guy disappears from the field of sight. And the next thing you see is the plane doing a nosedive into the water behind us. Never did find out what happened. 1 minute the guy's about to land on the carrier. Next time he's dead, nose down the water. It just... So if that's in peacetime, oh my God, I can't imagine wartime.
We only got about 3 minutes left here, guys, before we got to take our next break. Do you wear poppies in the United States?
Yes. Yes. They they usually stand outside. The veterans will stand outside Walmarts or banks or whatever, and you give them $1 or whatever you've got in your pocket, and you get a poppy. Yes, wear them proudly.
Absolutely.
Does it have a black center or a green center?
They have yellow centers. No, green.
Really?
Green.
Yeah.
Green centers.
We used to have green. They're black.
We used to have black and green. That's how old I am.
Wow. No, my last one was green. Yeah, I think it was green. Yeah. I know they've gotten they're cheaper. They're cheaper made than they used to be.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, every year I get one. wrap it around my rearview mirror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's ours over here are a different shape than they were in England. They have a kind of a 2-bump thing. What's really cool is we've been wearing them for years up here, thinking it was more of a Commonwealth thing, but it was actually a lady in the U.S. It was her idea.
Mm-hmm.
Monica Michael, who from the poem on Flanders Fields, she took it upon herself to start the poppy to remember. Very, very cool.
That's something I can remember back as far back as I can remember. I'm 53, so and my first recollection of the poppies is probably when I was 3 or 4, maybe. So yeah, that's been a tradition.
Well,
I'll tell you, I saw lots of them in Afghanistan.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are those other kind.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we have about 30 seconds left. I'm going to get you to hold on. I am loving this show. Thank you so much for being a part of our veteran show. We're going to do it one more hour with Trevor Wright from the Canadian Armed Forces, retired, Eric Cooper and Eric Markham from the United States military, retired, James Tyson, soon to be retired from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and now of Spaced Out Radio's Spaced Out Weekend. We'll be right back right after this.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines. Your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radios tonight as we do our annual thanks for everything to all the veterans out there, men, women, those who served in World War II, right through to Afghanistan today. We really appreciate you and your service for everything that you have done for us here in North America. If you're listening in on United Public Radio Network, live on 107.5 FM in New Orleans, thank you so much. And the 160 countries tuning in, we much appreciate you allowing us to be a part of your nightly family. You can visit us anytime at spacedoutradio.com. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Do us a favor, visit freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell set an impossible password for the SOR space travelers tonight. Axiomatization. And I'm not even going to say it again because I'm probably butchering it. But either way, it's a very, very good word. If you're an SOR space traveler, use it wisely. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, you can sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. You can listen to some great music by our resident guitar god, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses. He is the official music of this show. Read up on Eric Markham's SOR Space Wire. Read my latest blog, or you can sign up on the Sightlines Report. Mike Schmidt is waiting for your interesting encounter that you want explained. He's ready to research it for you. Tonight, it is a special night. For many of you, Remembrance Day or Veterans Day is over. But here on the West Coast, we are still celebrating our veterans for what they have done today and what they've done in the past. We are joined by Canadian Armed Forces veteran Trevor Wright, along with United States Army medic, retired, Eric Cooper, retired U.S. Navy, Eric Markham, and, of course, soon-to-be retired RCMP officer James Tyson. Welcome back.
I'm a corporal, not an officer.
Okay, I apologize.
I get paid. I work for a living.
Oh, there's yeah.
Your beard says different.
Yeah.
I was answering a phone. I had to stand after IC phone watch, and one time got a call, and the gentleman on the other side of the line called me sir. I said, "No need to call me sir. I work for a living." And he said, "This is Lieutenant Commander." It's like, oh. Yes, sir. I changed the tone of that conversation real quick.
I call everybody sir until I know better. I don't. Right. I don't. Everybody's a sir. The guy on the street that I bump into is yes, sir. And then it could go down from there, or it can go up from there. It just. But I'm not doing that. But I have put my foot in my mouth a couple of times with people, let's say, of superior service, if you ask them.
Yeah. And you don't answer the phone. Kelly's morgue, you stab them, we slap them.
We slap them? Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I learned that's an acceptable phone
protocol. That's frowned on.
Actually, the way I had to answer the phone was, yeah, hello, sir. This is Interior Communications Electrician, third class. Markham, may I help you, sir? That's why I hate phones this day, having to answer that for 4 or 5 hours at a whack. Just like, oh, my God.
Hey, I got an interesting question here, and Eric Cooper, I want to start with you. Did you have any superstitions or anything that you would do, or rituals that when you were going into a combat zone that you would do for good luck, or did your squadron have anything along those lines?
Let's see. Oh, God, let me think back on all the different units I've been in. Not really. Now, being aviation cavalry, I'm pretty darn sure our pilots did, because we were an Apache unit. And, Apache's a very unique, awesome helicopter, so I'm pretty sure they did. We didn't. So, nothing I could think of, no.
Nothing personally either?
Oh, personally as a pagan, yes. I did protection rituals over at the Tomboys and whatnot. And that was a given.
How about you, Trevor?
Well, the only thing I would do is no matter how long they said we were going out for, I would always pack extra stuff because we went around a mountain range. It was supposed to take us only 2 days wiping out Taliban. And 17 days later, we were still there.
Oh, goodness. That's a lot of underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know how to wear a pair of underwear for a week. Yeah. They teach you how to wear one pair for a week.
I would
inside out.
I would absolutely hate. What's that, Trevor? You were breaking up.
Yeah, they teach you back to front, inside out, back to front again.
Oh, goodness.
Baby wipes are your best friend. Let's just say that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, they still are. They still are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, how did you end up going out for 17 days? And what,
had the compass.
and what did your tank smell like?
A septic tank.
Well, here's how you go out for 17 days. As soon as you come up to a mountain range that's supposed to be kind of clear, but you're going there to wipe out Taliban, and in your echelon you have tanks, you have infantry, you have labs, there was 83 vehicles in our convoy, put it that way. There was Taliban police, not Taliban police, Afghan soldiers. We had a couple A-10s at our disposal, as well as Apache helicopters, and we had artillery at our disposal, and we used all of it. By the time we were coming up to the mountain range, we were already being engaged, and I'll tell you, whatever was engaging us didn't last very long because you have that many vehicles all firing at one position. Yeah.
Can I throw something in here real quick?
The tank smells a lot like cordite, and it's very hot.
Eric,
cordite's propellant that's inside the round.
I would like to throw in real quick for your listeners, because a lot of the conceptions of what we go against as far as the Taliban, ISIS, any of our terrorists we go against that think these are primitive people that are stupid and don't know how to fight, think the opposite. Because what he's talking about, going up mountain range, these aren't just some little bow and arrow, some little AK-47. These guys are heavily armed. They are heavily fortified. They aren't what you see on TV of some little guy with a rag on his head with a little AK-47. We're talking some very heavily armed terrorists that have RPGs, mortars, you name it.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, but on that particular event, we had an O group saying that they may have Russian laser-guided rockets.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which would have been devastating had they had those.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the stuff that they were launching at us was either Russian or of Chinese descent. Chinese rockets, Russian rockets.
Plus, they had a home turf advantage because those people have been at war. You know, they call Afghanistan the graveyard of empires because really no invading force, modern or of antiquity, has made much headway. I mean,
no, there's blown up Russian stuff all over the place.
They beat Russia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. Yesterday's Mujahideen is today's Taliban. When they were making the Russians' lives miserable, they were our buddies.
And I wasn't trying to interrupt you at all, Trevor. I just wanted to clarify for listeners, though, that what they see as terrorists on TV aren't what we're up against.
No.
These guys are heavily fortified and heavily armored.
Yeah, but we will be honest. Sometimes they don't do very smart things.
No.
They are heavily armed, though. A lot of times they don't do very smart things.
And looking at it the way that my training looks at stuff like that is it's a breakdown in communication. If you're going to get yourself you think of Trevor, you've got all those assets to draw from. You've got somebody or a pretty basic individual or smaller group that controls that and gets all that information in. If these guys you're going against, no matter how dedicated and armed they are, if they lose their coordination in an attack, it opens. It's like a football team with a coach that's all of a sudden not paying attention, or somebody's not paying attention. That lack of attention allows, an end rush. So luckily, if you went up against somebody with a full unit with good oversight and very good leadership, it's it's a head-to-head fight, and a pretty could be very devastating. But you just have to, try, like they always say, take out the head of the snake, and eventually the body's going to crumble. And it's the discipline, and again, falling back on that, I will work with anybody. These are all on my team. I don't care what color his uniform is. He knows what he's doing, and I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he knows what he's doing. That's his job.
Yeah.
This is my job. If I do my job and everyone else does their job, I will be able to go home.
Yeah, and a lot of people would think that that's a huge gamble, because you're gambling your life, not only everyone else's life, that you hope and pray that the person that's doing and covering your ass knows what they're doing. So, but I generally find that with the forces, you don't hope and pray, because these people are trained to do their job. We're all there to do that job, and you don't even need to think twice. I mean, until there's a problem that happens, which problems always happen no matter what you do, you solve that problem, you move on, and you continue on with your mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They say in World War II that was one of the things that, when they debriefed some of the German officers, they said that was one of the things that made the Americans so hard to fight, is if you took out the officer, the sergeant would take over, and it would work its way down, and that everybody pretty much knew how to run things.
Yep.
Where if you could take out the German officer, sometimes it would just the fighting way, their organization would disappear, because it's like, oh crap, now.
Or that's how they captured so many Germans. They got rid of their command structure, and they just didn't know what to do.
No, so they didn't train the next person down.
Right.
Yeah. And there was also that class system in Germany in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, where a lot of these officers came out of like the higher class and had no time for the grunt. And so there's not only a lack of communication from that top, but you didn't share knowledge. You didn't share. And some of these guys weren't even trained. They were just, friend of a friend.
Right.
They were pawns.
Yeah.
They were pawns and cannon fodder, as far as I look at it.
Kind of like the British did with the Canadians and the Newfoundlanders in World War I, and the Australians.
If Black Jack Pershing wasn't known for anything else, he should be honored for the World War I General Pershing for not turning the American troops over to the French officers.
Oh, yeah.
When they got there, it was
of course.
And he said, hell no. And there's a lot of men that came home from World War I that owed their lives to Jack Pershing.
Oh, yeah.
Because he wasn't going. He knew what the French officer corps was like, and there wasn't no way he was going to turn his boys over to them. Ain't happening.
Yeah, we got lucky. Canada got lucky with one of the generals who actually, because of the beating we were getting under the British, he broke down, because we didn't have a big population back in the early 1900s there, but he would break down the military into almost like a squad, what you would know as a squad now, and he would assign a machine gun and a medic and 7 or 8 other guys, and you would go this way, where the British still had everybody go over the top, or everybody attack on horseback, and whoever is left, overwhelmed by numbers. Where the Canadian general came in, I can't remember his name now, but General Curry. He actually started the smaller groups and assigned them to tasks. Go take that hill. How many people are you going to need? We'll need this many people. Not everybody's going to go take the hill, and like a bunch of ants just going. And if we lose half of them, we'll get more.
Well, they always say each war you fought. They always say that every war, the tactics are from the war before.
Yeah.
It's the first time a water-cooled machine gun. I'm not sure. It wasn't the Maxim, but it might have been a Vickers.
Vickers, yeah.
It was a water-cooled. Well, anyhow, the first time one was demonstrated in the U.S., and of course, it just obliterated everything in its path. One of the attending generals, after the test, said, "Yeah, that's all well and good, but nothing can, deter a determined cavalry charge." So you had to fight that mentality. Makes for great poetry, but makes it
the charge
lousy
of the
tactics. Yes.
Yeah, please don't sign me up to bring the bugle or carry the flag.
Right.
Yeah. I always thought those guys were cool, the bagpipers at the front, thinking, that'd be the first guy I'm going to shoot. Not only are you coming at me and trying to kill me, but you're trying to scare my horse with that guy squeezing the thing. So it's like fighting a guy who knows kung fu. He's hitting you and he's screaming at you at the same time. Like, do one of the... Pick one.
Yeah.
Don't do both. Well, exactly. In the charge of the Light Brigade in the Crimean War, it was late or mid 1800s. It was a frontal assault against artillery batteries, a frontal assault on horseback against artillery.
Yeah.
I'm not a trained military expert, but I've played enough Call of Duty. And I'm a great fan of combat back in the 60s. So I would know that would be bad.
Well, could you imagine any of those tactics being used today? Our death tolls would be insane.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things, MacArthur took a lot of grief for being kind of a grandstander and a prima donna. But if you look at his record of troops lost, I forgot what the ratio is called, but it's like how many troops he lost to take a position. His numbers were very good because he wouldn't waste his people. If they were too entrenched, like if the Japanese were dug into a point and there was nothing but U.S. behind him, it's like, screw them, go around it. Give it a try, and if it becomes a Hamburger Hill type thing, forget it.
You just call Broken Arrow.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing once they're behind you, they're surrounded.
Yeah, and in desert warfare, you can turn a small pocket into an island pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do we attack the fort or do we move around it? Well, let's move around it. We don't really need that. We're going north. We'll just go bypass and keep going north.
Yeah, let them eat their sand or whatever.
Yeah. I guess it'd be like in the Navy too, right? If we could attack this island, but if that island can't hurt us from a distance, don't worry about it.
Well, the main thing we were doing in the island hopping campaign was getting airstrips.
Yeah.
It was more about having an forward operational base closer to the Japanese mainland.
Yeah. Logistics, because you're going to run out of fuel or run out of ammunition or food, so you're going to want that to catch up to you, with you.
And that was, I guess, Nimitz, Halsey, there was another. God, I can't think of his name. Forgot which one is the one that actually designed that whole Midway
island hopping.
Well, not the island hopping. But there was like an overall idea of how we were going to commit the war in the Pacific. And I can't remember if it was Nimitz or Halsey came up with the idea.
MacArthur would have taken credit for it anyway.
Yeah. Well, when you look at what happened to him in Korea, okay, here's a man who has served, and MacArthur was smart in other ways. He realized back in his academy days that the Japanese were going to be a problem. He could see their growing imperialism. He could see a time and a place where they were going to be our enemy. He learned everything he could about their history, their culture, their castes, so that when it came time to fight them, he knew his enemy. One of his quotes is, don't get involved in a conflict with a people you don't understand. Unfortunately, we've missed
guys,
that.
I just want to say Coop's phone dropped off. I'm going to be calling him back, so if you hear a ringtone, that is us here.
Okay.
Roger that.
Okay.
And we've forgotten that lesson because we're screwing around in the Middle East, and that's an alien culture that
I know.
We're playing catch up with it.
I know.
Yeah, we don't know who our enemy is there.
I think that's not fair. I should be wearing a uniform. Everyone should wear a uniform. We learned that in grade school, in football and baseball. Yeah, it's awkward, but that's the way things are going to go. It's
right.
When you're fighting the Talibanians and they're all dressed like the civilian population.
Well, not
Yeah,
to
but you don't
mention-
know them until they pick up a weapon and fire at you.
Well, in Iraq, they were actually coming out of the base at night, and they were stealing U.S. military Kevlar's clothes. And for a time there, they're actually, I can't remember who it was, but they were actually putting a price on every Kevlar, U.S. military Kevlar, that was brought to the leadership of, it was ISIS back then, but the terrorist leaders. And so you didn't know who was who because they had our uniforms.
How did they get them?
Well, like I said, they'd sneak on a base at night and steal them. We actually had to watch also for Iraqis that were walking around our base with cell phones because they'd be using the cell phones and using
the
GPS or whatever. Yeah, they'd be using GPS to get target for mortars coming in. And we actually had the technology on our base, in Blot anyway, that we could pick up, it's kind of like a radar, but we could pick up mortar coming in. And it would sound an air raid siren. It was down to, I remember one night, we slept in trailers called shoes. I can't remember what, it's a housing unit. And if you heard mortars coming in, you grabbed your gear, you got in a bunker. And half the time, you got so tired of hearing mortars every day, you wouldn't listen to it. And I remember one night, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I heard boom off in the distance. Like, okay, it's out there a ways. And I heard boom. They're walking it in. And it was like, well, that's a little bit close. I grabbed my shit and I jumped in the bunker. And about then, there's a boom across the street from my chew. I mean, and a lot of times they get the Iraqis, they infiltrate our base, and they would do a coordinate with their cell phones of like where the PX was, where the chow hall was, this kind of thing. Well, the same ones would be, we had laundry service. And a lot of times you wouldn't want to use laundry service because it was Iraqis doing the laundry. And so it would be common for you to all of a sudden be missing a laundry bag. Well, they're selling our uniforms to Iraqis outside the base. That's how they got them. Same thing in Somalia. Same thing in Somalia. It was KBR, Brown and Root, before it was Halliburton. we had KBR Brown and Root for our contractors, and we had Somalis. Our fence around the university that we were staying at was only about 5-6 foot tall. I mean, there was one day I was being shot at by a Somali who was outside the gate, or outside the base, actually had his AK-47 on top of the wall and was shooting in. And one of the rounds went within inches of my waist. It was between me and a buddy of mine. And they came in and they stole like 18 bags of laundry. So we had Somalis, too, that would actually walk around in our uniforms. So, yeah, it's easy enough for them to get what we're wearing, and then you can't tell who's the enemy and who's a good guy.
Wow.
Well, it'd be the guy trying to hold up his pants with the AK-47.
Right.
I don't have a... the guy's got a 14-inch waist.
Right. And like in Somalia, too, during the day, before noon, before 12 o'clock, you would have the Somalis smiling waving at you. And about 12 o'clock is when the drug dealers came out with their cot. And what cot is, it's a tree bark. And you'd have this guy walk around Mogadishu with a big bundle of sticks. And they weren't to burn. He was selling drugs. And it makes them violent. I'm not sure what's in it, what kind of chemical, whatever, in this tree bark, but it made them violent. So the same people that were smiling and waving at you and giving you a thumbs up 1 minute are shooting at you the next. So that was one big thing that was going on in Somalia anyway.
Yeah. It's basically like it's a stimulant like a metafine. It's an ametaphene. A stimulant.
So
and
cot.
It creates cot. Psychological dependencies and stuff. We get it a lot. We'll pick it up at the airport here, where guys will be shipping it in. It's real popular anywhere around any of the countries from the Horn of Africa up there, Arabian Peninsula. Just it's one of those things you just chew on, and it was like historic for the whatever villages these guys came from. So
yeah, that's all they did is chew on a stick, and all of a sudden they're aggressive.
Yeah, lovely bunch of coconuts.
Darn thing. Yeah, my wife still got to grab my hand anytime we see a Somali, and see if we go to Seattle, in which we don't go to Seattle very much anyway. But just going to Seattle, there's a big Somali population there, and just seeing a Somali, you can tell the difference between them and any other African. And I freeze. So we don't go to Seattle too often.
Don't go to Sabattis, Maine either.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, I think it was Sabattis. They have like running their tribal wars and grudges that they had in Somalia didn't disappear when they came to the States.
Well, they never will. All it is like who owns the biggest block. That's really all Somalia is warlords. A deed, like everyone heard on Black Hawk Down, and I think that's the only Somali movie that came out. But yeah, Ferrara Deed was the main warlord of Mogadishu when I was there. And he was dropping propaganda pamphlets on his people in Mogadishu to get them to turn on us, saying that we were there to steal all the fish out of the ocean, and we were there to steal the women. And get on something else is kind of funny, but when we went into Iraq, the Iraqis were actually told that Green Beret got his Green Beret by eating babies. They were also told if we were wearing sunglasses, our sunglasses were X-ray vision, and we were only looking through our sunglasses because we were looking at their women. So you want to talk about propaganda? That's some of the propaganda that we heard about that they were being told based on our gear. Because I mean, we got issued. What's the name of that? What's an expensive brand of sunglasses?
Is that Oakley?
I can't remember.
Oakley?
Yeah, we were
Ray-Bans.
We were issued Oakleys. And so driving through the streets or whatever, if we had our sunglasses on, you could see the tension just over sunglasses.
They weren't trying to buy them off you. Hey, can I get some of those sunglasses?
Yeah.
No, they wanted to sell you the
cheaper ones.
They wanted to sell us it was the Jack Daniels and porn they wanted to sell us.
That's great. Yeah. The Jack Daniels that they made out back in some place.
Right.
In Kandahar, they kept trying to sell us Russian rifles.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, old Russian rifles and bayonets and whatever. We always had to be armed whenever we were in the little market outside the camp.
I had one of those old. Well, I've got a Mosin Nagant 7.62 by 5.4 bolt action.
Nice.
Years ago, I had a Tokarev rifle. That's kind of like their version of a M1 Garand, but it was clip fed from the bottom. And at the same time, I also had an illegal machine gun. We were out firing them one day, and the guy that owned the land came up to shoot. He was a friend of a friend. Anyhow, he was not impressed by the machine gun. I had a little M1A2 folding stock paratrooper model. But the Tokarev gave him redneck wood because you were up on a mountain. Well, this thing is amazing. I had some steel core that was shooting through it, and there was a lot of big chunks of limestone on the side of this mountain where we were shooting, and you could hit a big chunk of limestone and turn it into gravel with that Tokarev. I'm glad that, honestly, I'm kind of glad they quit importing those.
I've got a...
Yeah, we couldn't... you couldn't export any kind of weapons back from Kandahar at all. Nothing. Guys would buy them in the market, and then they would have to leave them behind because there was no exporting of any weapons of any kind, even if it was a replica or whatever. Nothing.
Mm.
Did any of you bring home souvenirs with you from where you were as a memento?
Yeah.
Money.
I
have a Survivor Afghanistan sweatshirt, which it has the Survivor logo, but Afghanistan. A Afghanistan Harley Davidson shirt. And I brought back it's like a picture frame with all the different kinds of sand that you can find in Afghanistan, which is like 7 or 8 types. So when you turn it over, the sand moves in it and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Except there's actually the 9th type, which is heroin. But you got it anyway.
Oh, and I brought back some gems and some gold.
Whoa,
that's
really?
Cool.
Because gold was cheap.
Did it take a long time to get it out of the guy's teeth? No, just kidding. You weren't airborne. I'm sorry. That was a whole airborne thing in Africa.
I had that big Canadian bayonet, maybe.
I've got, let's see, an Iraqi police armband. I've got, and there's a story behind my Somali money. When we got to Somalia, we were told you don't ever take their picture because they think their soul's locked up in the camera.
Sweet.
So we were on the wall, and we had a Marine gunner next to us, and there's like a whole throng of kids below us, and we were throwing them cigarettes, and they were throwing us money wrapped up in a rock. So we're sitting there for a good 15 minutes tossing them cigarettes, and they're tossing us money, and I still got the money. But our lieutenant, this little ditzy college student, dumb as a box of rocks, comes running up. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? And I'm like, well, sir, you toss them a cigarette. Here, toss them one. And they throw you money. Like, oh, cool. Well, that lasted about 5 minutes because then he pulled out his camera and he took a picture before anybody could tell him anything. And you see, like, I don't know, 40 kids down below this wall. And they're all having a good time. They're all laughing and having fun. And all of a sudden they see that camera and every one of them freezes. And then it wasn't so fun. It was they were throwing rocks at us, and the Marine gunner had to lock and load and tell him Siko Mahayo, which is get the hell out of here. And yeah, now on another note, if you ever heard of slingshots in biblical times, when David and Goliath had a slingshot, and it was nothing more than the one you sling around. They don't have wrist rockets in Somalia. They have slingshots, and they're deadly accurate. We're driving down the streets in the back of a 5-ton truck, and before we understood what a slingshot was, one of our guys got hit in the head. And we're in a moving truck. And this little kid's got a slingshot. We see him, flinging this thing over his head, and we're like, what's he doing? Bam! Yeah, that was a rock. Okay. Another funny story, the engineers went up out in the jungle of Somalia, and they were setting up a camp, and they were warned, you don't mess with the monkeys. Well, one monkey came out, and they're playing with it and whatnot, and one of the engineers got fed up with it, and he threw a rock at it. Monkey ran away.
Oh, no.
That night, there was a whole throng of monkeys all throwing rocks right back at him. Yeah. You don't mess with the monkeys. You don't mess with the monkeys in Somalia.
Could have been worse. You could have been seized at them.
I brought back Somali money. I've got Iraqi money. Like I said, I've got the Iraqi police armband. I've got a hand-knitted Somali hat that I paid $5 for from my Somali. Because there was a whole market down there in Mogadishu. They knew the U.S. was coming, and they had all kinds of souvenirs for you to buy. But that's the extent of my souvenirs.
Well, I've got some lira from... I found out the hard way that some nations don't keep their money in circulation like we do. So I got change for something up in Sorrento, Italy. Came back to Naples, went to pay for something, and the guy matter of fact, it was at the USO Club. The guy said, "I'm sorry, but this money is no longer any good." I said, "What? Is it counterfeit?" He said, "No, they just, time to time they take currency and say it's no good anymore." It's like, you got to be, effing kidding me. But yeah, I had about 20. I think it was about $20 worth of lira. I turned it back in. I kept a couple of them out, but I turned the rest of them back in on board and got my money. But and I have a clock off the Nimitz, one of the little round Bakelite U.S. Navy clocks that you have to wind up.
Yeah. What you need is that thing that notifies the engine rooms. You pull it back and it gongs and bring, bring.
That was
engine. You need that.
This goes back to shooting the bagpipe rhythm.
Yeah. It's like,
no, the Nimitz has that. It's called the engine order telegraph. It was part of the gear I worked on.
Well, see, they wouldn't miss that.
The old days it was a chain system, but this one they had synchronous motors in them.
Hey, I got a question for Trevor from Gail and the SOR Space Travelers. Trevor, she is asking, as a Canadian soldier, do you have the same difficulties, or as Canadian soldiers, do you have the same difficulties with help as veterans in the United States do?
With help?
Help, as in, outside of the military, maybe for PTSD or along those lines.
Oh, no. Actually, Canada is actually considered one of the best countries, actually, for getting help for that kind of stuff, believe it or not.
Yeah, they recognized it relatively early as something that wasn't being made up by people. Veterans Affairs, the only thing that's really screwed the military and the Mounties up is I get a veterans pension of a close to about $800 every month for injuries from work. If the government that's no longer in charge right now, conservative government, tried to save money by saying, you know what, we're going to offer that 20-year-old kid and this happened is a guy who Canadian military lost basically 10 feet of intestine after a Claymore mine ripped through his abdomen. And they said, well, look, we'll give you $20,000 or you can sign up for this pension thing. It's like, $800 a month or whatever. And I guess they took the kid when he was basically, very young, and in the hospital, he signed it, got his $20,000, and later on he realized, no, that $800 a month goes up, with the cost of living, and it's for life.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, he's.
Guess what I get?
What do you get?
And I was injured in the line of duty. I was given $16,000. I have a titanium pin and screw in my right knee. I had MCL repair and ACL reconstruction. I get $22.98 per month for the rest of my life.
No, you don't. You know what you can do? You can go back and have it reassessed. Oh, no, you got the payout. Okay.
I got the $20,000, the $16,000 payout.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. If
when I got in, I didn't know about any of this stuff. And when I got injured, I still didn't know this stuff. So I did the same thing. I signed the sheet, got my one-time payment, didn't get put through school or anything else that other people got. And now I get $2.98 per month for the injuries that I sustained in my knee, which are be with me for the rest of my life.
Right. And that's what I was a part of a group, the Equitas group. Actually, the kid who I was talking about had his intestines ripped out. I work with his parents a lot. We raise money for veterans with my motorcycle group, the Third Cav, which is the Third Cav being Canadian Army veterans. And we're across Canada, but we work a lot with veterans who have issues, and a lot of them post-traumatic stress. And so there is help. There was a real screw-up with the last government that was in the way veterans are being treated. The other thing, too, is we only had veterans from, I'm guessing, the Korean War and a few in Cyprus that had injuries. And now, with 12 years in Afghanistan, the government wasn't anticipating all those veterans coming back with, and a certain percentage of them with injuries and issues. And that was costing them too much money under the old system. So they changed the system to the detriment of those kids coming back. My dad was World War II. The Korean War guys didn't even get what he got. My dad, up until his death, because he was a Second World War veteran, he got about 60% off his property taxes on his house. He got a maid once a week and yard care once a week he could pay for. Because he was a gunner, he had a hearing loss at a certain level. Not only the gunner, but he sat between two radial engines. So he got paid X amount a month for that, and all his hearing aids, or if he wanted them, he could get them. His teeth, all his dental. He was playing lacrosse at a Air Force base and got a bunch of teeth knocked out. So his dental was paid for because that was a military accident. Cut a lacrosse ball in the mouth. But honestly, he went into a senior's home, top of the line, $4,000 a month, cost him $1,800 a month. Food, everything. This was like a palace. But those kind of benefits stopped with the World War II veterans.
Well, the VA's done well by my little brother, my friend I told you about that made on the Nimbus. I call him my little brother. Because he is a flight deck sailor, he gets his hearing aids for free. Which, and he didn't retire. I mean, he stayed in a little longer than I did, but he didn't do 20. And I thought that was really good because I've got some hearing loss because I stood all those watches with that 60 cycle hum going in my ear. So, but
they do take care of it.
River?
That has to do with my injury as well. I mean, they do supply me with the knee braces when I need them. Anything that I go see the doctor, whether it's medication or whatever, they pay for. I have a special card, a veteran's card. But it's just, they caught me when I just got in, didn't know anything about it. I mean, I signed my name on the dotted line, got in, did my stuff, and then tore my knee apart. And, here, sign this. And, you first get in, they tell you they're going to give you a check for $16,000. You're like, oh, wow, right on. Like, I could use $16,000 right now. Like, is there anybody that's, on here right now that could say, I would love $16,000 right now? Or would you like the $800 a month for the rest of your life? Oh, no, all I heard was $16,000, right? Because you don't know what you're going to get per month. They just tell you what you're going to get.
They kind of whispered. They kind of whispered the $800 a month. You just heard the $16,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
A buddy of mine on the motorcycle group, he was taken hostage by the Turkish in Cyprus. And this would have been back in late 70s, early 80s. He was on the peacekeeping on the wall that separated the Greek side of the island from the Turks. And he was shot in the stomach after he was taken hostage, and they tortured him by sticking things into the wound. And this went on for 3 or 4 days, and he finally got traded with whatever. They released him anyway. So not only did he have a physical injury, but if you could imagine an incredible head bone injury, huge PTSD. He went through, and that would have been in the probably early 80s. He started his fight with Veterans Affairs in 2003. So 20 years later, they basically, no, it wasn't even later than that, 2013. Yeah, so 30 years later, he didn't die on them. So they actually paid him out over $350,000. He bought himself a trike, hopped on the trike, and now lives in Florida. So he said, screw it. But when you start looking at somebody's injuries, you've got your physical, and then you've got the head injury. Like, that's going to come back. I can go back to Veterans Affairs and get reassessed because I broke a bone in my hand when I accidentally bumped it on a guy's chin, and it will get arthritis, and the arthritis will get worse. I've got lower back injuries and shoulder injuries and stuff from wrestling, idiots. And but as they get worse, I can get reassessed, and then that monthly pay goes up. Unfortunately, nowadays, if you sign that check, you're screwed.
Are you familiar with the fella that's a now retired Canadian Forces member that has to prove every year that he lost his leg?
That's a funny story.
Yeah.
That sounds like the
It's true, though. I wish I was joking, you guys, but this has been big news. He has to prove, I don't think it's every year now, they changed it. He has to prove every 3-4 years that he still has no legs.
It grew back by itself.
Yeah. They think he's part salamander. And he's
I know, right?
Yeah.
But with the government and Veterans Affairs, he has to prove that his legs are gone.
Gentlemen, we only have about 4 minutes left. I do want to get this comment from Olive on the Revolution Radio chat room. He is asking me to thank all of you for your service and dedication to both Canada and the United States. So I wanted to pass that along before we got any further.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Markham, Cooper, you made an interesting comment the other day that I read on your Facebook page that basically said you don't know how to take appreciation when someone comes up and says thank you. Why is that?
Yeah, and here's why. Because me personally, and I can't speak for everyone, but me personally, I joined the military because, well, I saw it as an honor for one. I don't see myself as anything special. I did what I felt I needed to do, and so yeah. When someone says thank you, I don't know how to take it because I'm just a normal guy. I went, I did my time. I did 4 combat tours. I wouldn't change a damn thing. I won't say I enjoyed it because that would be wrong, but I accomplished my mission. I brought my soldiers home. I did what I had to do. So when someone says thank you, I don't take away from them at all, but it just, I feel awkward. I guess that's the word. Because I'm just a normal guy. I went and did my job.
We were doing our duty.
Trevor?
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself because I feel the same way. Like, I had someone say to me in the bank the other day, they're like, "You're a veteran? You're a little young to be a veteran, aren't you?" I said, "Well, I am 44 years old." I said, "I am 44. And she goes, "Well, where did you serve?" And I said, "Well, I went to Afghanistan." She's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Thank you." And I didn't know how to take it either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just, like you were saying, I just did it because I felt that's what I had to do. And just to add to that, I felt it was easier for me to do it because I don't have a wife and kids I'm leaving behind. Yes, I have a mother. Yes, I have a brother. Yes, my father was alive at the time. But it was easier for me to do it than it would be for a gentleman or a woman to be ripped from their home, to have to go overseas. I mean, that's the only thing I could add to it, is I just felt that I had to do it.
We got about 2 minutes left. I want to get this quick question in, and I'll start with you, Trevor, on this one. While you were in Afghanistan, because it is Spaced Out Radio, did you ever have any paranormal or UFO or weird experiences?
The only weird experience was talking to you, Dave. All right, next person.
All right, thank you. Oh, jeez, nice guy.
That was pretty spaced out, too.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Coop, I know you did.
Yeah, I had a UFO sighting in Iraq going over Syria. Was it experimental? It could have been, but due to the fact that I had actual aircraft personnel with me on the ground that saw it as well and verified it was not ours, or any kind of foreign, military aircraft. It could have been experimental, but by the definition of UFO, it was unidentified. So indeed, we saw it for about 3 nights in a row, and it was gone. As far as spirits, we had spirits and entity kind of activity all the time. In fact, I caught pictures of elementals leaving. So yeah, I've got photographic evidence as well.
I have seen the elemental pictures. They're pretty incredible. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much for what you did, and for you to take the time to come on this show and share your stories. It is fantastic. Trevor Wright, retired military veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. Eric Markham, retired United States Navy. Eric Cooper, retired 4-time combat veteran, U.S. Army medic. He brought all his boys home. Congratulations, guys. What job well done. You guys hold on. James, I want to say thank you for joining us, as well as I'm cleaning out the cabin before I leave, Uncle Jimbo. It's got to get clean. It's got to get clean. I got to wipe down the computers, the microphone. I don't know. And your jujubes from last weekend. I ate them. They were on the floor. They were good. All right. Hey, if you're listening in on the Space Out Radio side, you're listening to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses. Bumblefoot is the official music of this show. He brings us in and takes us out every single night. You can follow our show if you want to listen to our archives on YouTube, Space Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. You can download this show or many others on iTunes if you have an iTunes account as well. I want to say thank you to our veterans. Have a great weekend. I've got my bag packed. I'm heading over to the mountains. Going to find a cave that Sasquatch has evicted himself from. Hopefully it has a good Wi-Fi signal, as tomorrow night and Sunday, Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, and Elizabeth Anglin are in for Spaced Out Weekend. And you know it's always going to be a great, fantastic show with them. Remember, you can follow us at our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got some real interesting things coming down the pipeline. Do us a favor. Tell a friend. That's the way we're going to grow this, baby. And it's growing. Trust me. We just added United Public Radio Network out of New Orleans. 160 countries. We're at 20-plus thousand listeners a night, thanks to joining them. And that's where we're rocking it. You guys have a good one. I'm out of here for the weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday night. Margot Matias will be our guest, talking angels and aliens. See you later.